Hello and welcome to Online Appliance Tech. Today we're going to show you how to replace the front door gasket on an LG washer. First thing you want to do is remove the two rear screws in the back. You only have to remove the bottom, not the top. So before you get started, make sure you unplug the unit. So does your washer gasket look like this? Some good tips I will leave in the description below. Also some recommendations to keep it clean. So the top panel, you just kind of press it or push it straight back and lift straight up. So you slide it back and lift straight up. And just place somewhere safe. Disconnect the harnesses that connect to the display control board. They should be anywhere from between 3 and 5. Okay, let's remove these two. Actually, on this one, there's just one on the far right hand corner, kind of hidden. This screws into the display that kind of snugs it against the housing of the machine. And then you also remove these two. This is this support beam, I guess you would say. At this time, we're going to remove the dispenser drawer. Press the button down here and pull out. And now you'll remove the two Phillips head screws. This connects the front display to the dispenser housing. And just when you start removing all these screws, make sure you have them in an organized pile. That way you'll know exactly where they are when it's time to put them back together. Okay, so we have all the coaxes disconnected. We're going to clip this panel off. You kind of lift up and pull forward. So it's like clipped into the front housing. So you'll lift up with your fingers and pull towards yourself, I guess you would say. If you're still having trouble, you can also use a flathead, just very gentle. And then also when you pry up, make sure you pry up where it's clipped into the housing, that way you don't mess up the display panel. In other words, just take your time. Sometimes they come easy and sometimes they're a little bit difficult. Okay, so once removed, you'll just pull the display off and put it somewhere safe. Now let's remove the door switch. These are two Phillips screws that you have to remove. To remove the front door, you do have to remove this first. Just be careful not to cut yourself like I did. Okay, now we're going to disconnect the bottom screws that connect into the door housing. This way we can remove the door. So you have two Phillips screws here that holds the plastic cover. So remove these two. And then you'll tape the plastic cover and just pull it straight out. And then you'll have one Phillips screw there that you have to remove the door. Okay, so now we're going to take a flathead and remove the door spring. So just pry out, kind of like you see here. Just remove it. And then you're going to press the gasket and be careful that's sharp also. So peel the gasket off and you're going to place that inside the machine. Just enough to remove the door. Okay. Okay, now let's remove all these screws. You can use a Phillips if you like. What I like to do is remove the middle ones and one each on the sides, and then before I remove the last one, kind of have my hip against the door so the door doesn't fall forward. Okay, here you can use a flathead or a pair of needle nose to pry up this front door support. It basically just holds the door into place. Then remove your last Phillips screw. At this point the door will fall forward, so have your hip against it. Okay, when the door pulls forward or leans forward, just lift it straight off the bottom latches. Now we're going to remove the top support. There's 2 Phillips screws on the right and 2 on the left. There's also 2 on the top, one on the left, one on the right. And like I said, make sure you have an organized pile for your screws unless you've done this for a while. So the support you just lift straight up, but you will have to remove this dispenser housing back first, as you'll see. But first, we have to remove these harnesses from the housing. You can take a flathead or you can take a pair of needle nose to kind of pry them together and push back. Okay, so now we'll move the dispenser back and we'll lift straight up and out. See, this will not come off until you remove the dispenser back. Okay, just be careful that thing is sharp. Okay, now we got to disconnect the hoses and so forth so we can remove the gasket. So get a pair of needle nose or something like that. You'll just take the clamps off. So just pry them together, move them up. I would just keep them on the hose if you can, that way you don't lose it, and just pry the hose off the fitting. Or pull it off, I would say. You have to remove this one also. Try to keep everything together when you take everything apart, that way you know what goes to what. And then this, you'll just kind of press this down into the gasket and pull straight out. And you will have to put this into the new gasket. Okay, let's remove the LED light. To remove this light, you have to press it up, but you will have to cut off the zip tie. So once removed, you'll just press this LED light up, and this also will have to go into the new gasket. Remove the Phillips screw on the right and the left. These tubes are for your circulation pump. Then take some needle nose to remove the clamps. So just squeeze and wiggle, and I would recommend keeping this on the hose so you do not lose them. So now you will pry this from the gasket. So just kind of wiggle them side to side as you pull. If need to, take a flathead to wedge in between to give that break. Okay. So we got everything removed. Now we're going to remove the weights from the bottom and the top. Also, we have to remove this bottom. Same thing, just clamp it together, move it down, and disconnect it from the gasket. Okay, so I believe this is a 10mm. Yes. So just remove the 4 10mm bolts, and then once that's done, you'll just take the weight and slide it off. Just kind of wiggle it side to side. It is a little heavy, so just be a little careful. Now we're going to remove the bottom weight. There are 4 10mm screws or bolts. The reason we remove these is to get to the back spring and install the new gasket easier. Okay, let's finish disconnecting this hose. Okay, this is the rear spring. Same thing, you'll take a flathead and pry in between and pry up to remove. And just pull it right off. So at this point, you will have to remove everything from the old gasket to put on the new gasket. So when you remove everything from the old, just make a nice little organized pile somewhere where you'll know exactly where everything is. Another tip, if you see any of these tubes clogged, make sure to declog them and remove any type of debris. And I will also leave in the description below a link to some good washing machine cleaner. Okay, so now let's remove the spring. This is the rear spring. For now, I will just put this inside the washer. I recommend getting a paper towel or some type of rag to wipe the inner rim of this machine. This way you can install the new gasket at ease. But this kind of shows you what's really inside your machine, so I definitely recommend a good cleaner. And another tip is to leave your door open at night when you're not using the machine to let air out. So this is a new gasket. Each gasket is different, so make sure you get the right gasket if you buy one. You would do that by typing in the model number, say on some type of appliance repair shop or part shop. If you do need help, just leave it in comments and I'll help you find the right part number. Okay, to install the gasket correctly, you will have an arrow on the gasket and on the outer tub of the washer. So make sure these are pointing at each other. Pull this, separate the gasket, and press it on the lip of the outer tub. Press it in. So at first it's a little complicated, but you'll keep this pressed in at the top. As you can see, I'm holding it down. And then I'm going to take my right hand and start working my way towards the right, but I'll pull up on that lip so it goes in between the gasket. Looks like my flashlight died. It's a bipolar flashlight. It'll come back on. Okay. So back to topic. So what I do, I just press my way to the left as I press the top end. It's kind of a hard angle to see. So I hold this as I press in with my thumb and pull the top up to go onto the groove of the outer tub of the washer. Oh, there's my light. Sorry about that. Too bright. Let me see. There we go. Just turn it off there. So I'm going to pull this up as I press in with my thumb to make sure it's clipped onto the outer tub of the washer. And then I have to hold it as I work my way down to the left or the right. And it will clip in, so I press in with my thumb and pull up on the top gasket to overhook the lip. And I'll basically just do this all the way around. And everything looks aligned, so it looks like we're going to be good. So at this point, make sure everything is clipped in all the way and lined up correctly. As you can see, I'm lining up the hoses and make sure I'm going to have no problem reconnecting. And then what I'll do too is I'll go around again with my thumb and hand to make sure everything's sealed correctly and clamped onto the outer tub correctly. One thing you do not want to do is not install this gasket right and put the machine back together and have a flood. So make sure just to take your time and look good and do it right the first time. Okay, so everything looks correct. So now we're going to install the rear spring. So this spring is kind of a pain to put on, but I do have a special, I guess you would say, a little trick that would help you out. So that's one reason we remove all the weights too. That way we can get to everything and see exactly what we're doing. So this spring will go in between the groove of the gasket, the rear groove. You have to make sure it's in the groove all the way around before you tighten it up. It may be good if you have someone to help you do this too. 2 eyes are better than one, and 2 hands are better than one. So just make sure it's correctly all the way around, so when you do tighten it up, it's gonna be nice and sealed correctly, or connected, I would say, correctly. Okay. So you're going to get a pair of needle nose. Not one with a big head on the end, but something that can slide in between, enough room to give you enough to connect to the other part of the spring. Okay. Hold down tight because you got to make sure it doesn't slip. Then you'll press down with your finger, or 2 fingers I would say, and line it up a way where it will clip onto the spring easy. Okay, like, and that's not a good way. Let me reverse it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hold this down nice and tight, and then I'm going to pry over and clip it on. So 2 hands, pry it on. Then even after this, make sure everything is on correctly. So go around with a flashlight and make sure it's all the way around inside the groove of the washer, which is fine. So let's just fast forward. I can only work this fast in real life. This is what I mean to make sure you clean out any type of debris. This is the bottom hose, and a lot of times you'll get water left inside the gasket because this is clogged up. So it's definitely good to clean out while you can. So to install this tube, you'll have to place the clamp on first and then slide this inside the hose. Actually, that's wrong. That's not right. As you can see, if you clamp this down, you can go over like this. So what we'll do is actually just put the tube on first and then slide that clamp over it. So what I'm doing here is I'm pressing down with my finger on the top of the gasket as I press the tube up. That way I can make sure the tube is all the way in, and then I'll just slide this over it and make sure I have a nice seal. Everything's nice and even. Okay. Then I'll press it back onto the lower hose. And same thing, I'll use my needle nose. And also make sure it's nice and perfectly even. That way we have no type of leaks or anything like that. Okay, let's reinstall the counterweights. That's the next step. So make sure you don't get them confused from the top and the bottom. Slide them on. Get your 4 10mm bolts ready. Millimeter. And just tighten up everything. One thing you do want to do is make sure before you tighten these up to press the weight all the way back before you put the bolts in. If not, this will cause the machine to shake quite a bit. Install the top weight. So yeah, you have to install the weights before you hook up anything else. So yeah, so just make sure everything is pressed back all the way before you install the 10mm bolts. Okay, so now we're going to reconnect these tubes also. So I press in with my finger for tension, and I press the tube in. Okay. I'm going to take my needle nose and pry this over. Actually, I'm going to do this one first. Press in. Pry this together. The clamp, and make sure everything's nice and perfectly even. A lot of LG washer front loaders don't have these side hoses, so you probably won't even have to worry about this step, but if you do have a washer that has it, you'll know how to do it. So now you just, reinstall the hose, or reconnect, I would say. So I'm just pressing with my finger for the tension. Give me something to pry against, and then just reinstall the clamp. Make sure it's nice and sealed, no gap. Definitely don't want no leaks. Reinstall your Phillips screw. And this is why you should definitely keep everything kind of organized. That way you know exactly where everything goes. So let's reinstall the hose. Press on the inner gasket for leverage. Put the clamp back on exactly where it should go. Make sure you have no type of gap in between these two hoses, between the hose and the gasket. Reinstall the Phillips screw. And also check after yourself, just to make sure. Okay, so now we have to install the LED lights in the top tube. It's also good to clean this out too, so when water does come in, it's got a good flow. So this you want to make sure you put on the right way. It has little grooves on the top too, so you can't really mess that up. Just make sure they line up correctly with the top groove of the gasket. So you have to press this in. I like to press in between and press up to give me leverage. And also I do not want to rip the gasket, so I press in the middle of this hose. And you'll see two little clips on each of them that lines up perfectly with the gasket right there. So remove the clamp, and then you'll just slide this over and then reinstall the clamp. Okay, so this hose you'll press over, press all the way down, make sure it's all the way down, and then you'll slide that clamp back over to make sure it doesn't come off. Okay, the LED light. So this will come through the top and press down. So it clips or clicks in all the way through, and it's nice and flush. And that's pretty much it. So everything looks good. So now it looks like I'm ready for the, just double checking. So all I'm doing here is just basically checking one more time to make sure that everything looks right before I put the front door on. So the next step is the top support housing. So this clips in, you gotta definitely make sure the dispenser is back. And then you want to clip it into the side, and it'll just clip down into place right here. So it goes in and down, and vice versa, the same on the other side. So here I messed up, so I have to take it back off, put this on top, push in and down. It'll click right into place. So as you remember, on the top of this there's actually four small little screws. And also this dispenser housing, it has to slide into this support frame. So I always like to do this kind of first to kind of make sure I know I'm aligned with everything. So now I will reinstall the screws. So on this part here, I have two screws, one on the right and one on the left. Actually, there's two on the right and two on the left, but they're on the top. The bottom ones are for the door, so when you reconnect the door, that will also screw into this housing support housing. I'm going to reconnect my LED light. I'm actually clipping all these harnesses back into the support housing first. And then I'm going to clip the LED light together. So these are the harnesses for the display. So this door, you slide it in, it has I believe three holes in the bottom, and there's three at the bottom of the housing of the fridge. So this basically slides on these clips at the bottom of the washer. One thing you want to do is have the two door screws ready and just kind of hold the back of the door switch and put these screws in with your hand. That way it will hold the door lock assembly while you put the door back on. Okay, so now I can press the door back and not worry about the door switch falling. So before I press the door all the way back, I want to make sure I pull this gasket out because you can rip it. So don't press all the way back until you pull this out first. Okay, so now I press it in and align the door up. I will hold it with my hip, that way I can have two hands to screw in the door. To help you. So once you get one or two screws in on each side, you can pretty much let go of the door. Okay, so now I'm going to hold the back of the door switch and snug down these Phillips screws. Now I'm going to overlip this gasket on the front of the washer. Be careful, the side of this washer is fairly sharp, so just take your time. So basically when you overlip the outer door, make sure it goes in between the outer washer that would go in between the gasket, the groove of the gasket. So yeah, just pull the gasket over the lip of the outer washer and make sure it's nice and done correctly. Okay, so now we're going to reinstall the outer spring. This one's not as difficult as the inner spring, but you will need a flathead and a pair of needle nose. So this is how I do it. I hold with my finger, have my flathead ready. I'm gonna clip these in between, or put it in the hole and pull out towards my right. Make sure this is not going to slip because you can scratch your washer. Okay, so I got that nice and tight. I'm going to bring my flathead in, lip it up, use my finger to press the spring back against the washer. As I pull my needle nose towards the right, I'm going to bring my flathead down to meet it. As I pull the needle nose towards my right, it'll basically stretch the spring so I can clamp this on correctly, if that makes sense. And I just check and make sure everything's done correctly. The spring is in between the groove of the gasket. As you can see, here is not 100%, so I'll just pull it out with my finger until it goes in between the groove. Okay. Reinstall the bottom screw. Put the cover back on, the drain pump cover. And then you'll have two Phillips screws that holds the cover to the washer. Well, it looks like my drill died. Let me use a hand tool. Okay, place the top cover on. Cover plate. If this falls back, just slide it back up again so it lines into the support housing. So let's reinstall the display. Run the coax harness through the hole, and then it'll line up by itself, and then you'll press down. One important thing is you want to make sure this display panel, the two holes align with the dispenser housing. And this just clips in. As you can see, I'm just pressing it and clipping everything in, and it's overlapping the top support. Then I'm going to press this through, make sure it comes fairly easy. Sometimes you have to wiggle just a little to line it up correctly. And then these two Phillips screws will go. So this basically just screws in the dispenser housing to the top display panel. Okay, so now we're going to install this Phillips screw that goes through the top support into the display panel. This basically just snugs it together. Make sure to reconnect all your harnesses and clip them in. So when you slide your dispenser into the dispenser housing, press down the button and press in. Has a little button on top that says press. And reinstall your top panel. Just slide it in an upwards position, or towards you I would say, and then reinstall the 2 Phillips screws in the back. Okay, let's plug back in the unit. Okay, let's run this through a test mode to check for any type of leaks. So how you do that, you hold the solid spin and the spin speed button down as you press the power button, and then you press the start button to activate the diagnostic mode. The first one is a low spin speed, and you press the start button again and it will go to a higher spin speed. And once you press again, it should activate a water cycle. Actually, it has another speed. So this is basically tests the RPM and so forth. Okay, once you press one more time, it will have to stop the spin cycle to start the next test. Okay, so now we have water enter the tub. So what I like to do is let it fill up quite a bit. That way the next test is agitation and we can check for leaks. Okay, so press the start button one more time and that should start the agitation mode. At this point, just check around the machine and make sure you have no type of leaks. To exit this diagnostic mode, or to drain the water out, you'll just keep on pressing the start button and it'll drain the water out, and then you can just press the power button. As you can see there, the water is draining out, and then after the water is drained out, like I said, just press the power button. Well, thank you for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, just please leave in comments below. And if not already subscribed, please like and subscribe for more future tips and videos. And we would love to help you and be your online appliance source for your future appliance repair problems. Thank you.